He went into the water laughing. 4 minutes later, his friends were screaming his name into the dark. 3 hours later, they told police he never came out of the cabin. 2 different stories.
2 different nights.
And only one boy who knew the truth, and he's been dead for 6 years. Tonight, I'm going to show you the 911 call nobody was supposed to hear, the text message that was deleted and recovered, and the one detail in the autopsy report that made a retired homicide detective say, this wasn't an accident. This was staged to look like one. Stay till the end, because there's a twist in this story that even I didn't see coming, and once you hear it, you will never look at a camping trip gone wrong story the same way again. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe because we don't just tell you what happened, we show you why it matters. Let's get into it. It was the last weekend of summer, 2018, at Cedar Hollow Lake, a small, half-forgotten reservoir tucked into the hills of rural Tennessee, the kind of place locals go to escape everything: cell service, work, and, apparently, consequences. 7 friends, 1 cabin, 2 boats, and a bonfire that was supposed to be the perfect send-off before college started. The group had known each other since middle school. There was Derek Holloway, 22, the unofficial leader of the group, loud, confident, the guy who always drove the boat too fast and somehow never got caught. There was Mia Torres, Derek's on-again, off-again girlfriend, who, according to 3 separate witnesses, had broken up with him exactly 9 days before this trip. There was Caleb Reyes, the quiet one, the guy nobody really talks about in this story, but you're going to want to remember his name. And then there was Josh Whitfield, 21 years old, a business major, a guy his mother described as the kind of son who called every Sunday no matter what. Josh was the reason we're here tonight, because by Monday morning, Josh Whitfield was dead, and nothing about how he died made sense. At 2:47 a.m., a call came into the Hartwell County Sheriff's Office. The caller was Derek Holloway. Here's the thing people don't know. This call was never fully released to the public. Only a partial transcript made it into the initial press release. I've spent 4 months tracking down the full, unredacted version through a records request, and what's on it will give you chills. The official transcript reads, 911, what's your emergency? We can't find him. He went swimming and he didn't come back. Sir, I need you to stay calm. How long has he been in the water? I don't know. Maybe 20 minutes? Maybe longer. We were by the fire and then it cuts. That's where the official version ends. But here's what almost nobody has heard. In the background of that call, barely audible, layered under wind noise, there are voices. Not panicked voices. Arguing voices. A female voice says something that multiple audio analysts, independently, have transcribed differently, but they all agree on 3 words. He already knew.
Knew what?
Nobody has ever explained that phrase. Derek Holloway, when asked about it years later in a deposition, said he doesn't remember anyone saying that and suggested it might be wind distortion. Maybe it was. Audio from a lakeside 911 call at night, with wind and water, distortion is common. I want to be fair here. I'm not going to tell you Derek Holloway said something sinister. I'm telling you what's on the tape, and I'm telling you that investigators at the time never followed up on it. That's a fact, not a theory. Josh Whitfield's body was recovered 11 hours later, roughly 400 yards from where the group said he'd gone swimming, which, according to the county's own water flow reports, was against the current, not with it. A detail that was never publicly explained. The initial autopsy listed the cause of death as drowning, consistent with intoxication. Toxicology showed a blood alcohol content of 0.19, more than double the legal limit. On paper, it looked exactly like what everyone assumed. A drunk 21-year-old made a bad decision at 2 a.m. and paid for it with his life. Tragic. Simple. Case closed. Except it wasn't that simple. Because 3 things bothered Josh's family enough to hire their own private investigator, a retired detective named Gary Pruitt, who spent 26 years working homicide in Knoxville before retiring. Thing number 1. There was a laceration on the back of Josh's scalp, about 2 inches long, that the original report attributed to post-mortem contact with rocks or debris consistent with drift patterns in the lake. Pruitt disagreed. In his independent review, He noted the wound had characteristics more consistent with blunt force trauma delivered before death, not after, specifically bruising around the wound margin, which typically doesn't occur if the heart has already stopped. Thing number 2, Josh's phone. Recovered from the cabin, not on his body, which is normal. People don't swim with their phones. But forensic recovery of the phone showed a text message drafted at 2:31 a.m., 16 minutes before the 911 call, that was never sent.
It read,
"Something is wrong here. I need to leave. Can you come get?" The message cuts off mid-sentence. It was never sent. It was never mentioned by anyone in the group during initial interviews. And it wasn't discovered until Josh's family's private forensic expert did a deeper extraction of the phone's data 8 months later. Thing number 3. Every single member of the group gave a slightly different timeline of when Josh entered the water. Not wildly different, but different enough that when Pruitt laid all 7 timelines side by side, there was a gap. A 12-minute gap where nobody could account for where Josh was or what was happening. 12 minutes. That's not nothing. Now here's where the story takes a turn that even I didn't expect when I started researching it. Because there's a name that's about to come into this story that changes everything, and it's not one of the 7 people in that cabin. Cedar Hollow Lake wasn't empty that night. According to camping permits pulled by Detective Pruitt, there was another group camping roughly a quarter mile down the shoreline, a group that was never interviewed by the original investigators because, according to the sheriff's report, no additional witnesses were identified in the vicinity. That's false. Pruitt found them. A family of 4, camping for the weekend, who told him something that never made it into any official file. The father, who asked to remain anonymous in Pruitt's notes, said that around 2:15 a.m., he woke up because he heard shouting, not screaming for help, but what he described as an argument, like people yelling at each other, not yelling for help. He said it lasted maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then it stopped. He didn't think much of it. College kids, drinking, arguing, it happens every weekend at that lake. He didn't call anyone. He didn't think it was his business. He never told police because police never asked him. Nobody canvassed that side of the lake. Nobody knocked on his tent. That's not a conspiracy. That's not corruption. That's something worse. In a way, it's carelessness. A tired deputy, a small county sheriff's office with 4 detectives covering an entire rural county, a case that looked simple on the surface, so nobody dug deeper. And a family lost a son to what may have been an accident, or may have been something the world will never fully understand, because the first 48 hours, the most critical hours in any death investigation, were handled like a routine drowning. Remember I told you to remember Caleb Rhea's name? Caleb was the only person in that group who, to this day, has never given a media interview, never posted about Josh on social media, and, according to 2 people close to the group who spoke to me off the record, cut off contact with every single member of that friend group within 4 months of Josh's death.
Why?
I want to be very careful here, because I am not accusing Caleb Reyes of anything. There's no evidence, none, that Caleb did anything wrong. But in an investigation this thin, sometimes the most important clue isn't what someone says. It's what they don't say, and who they stop talking to. When Detective Pruitt tried to reach Caleb for an interview in 2019, Caleb's mother answered the phone and said only this: "My son has nothing to add. He's tried to move on. Please don't call this number again." Move on from what? A tragic accident? Or something he can't unsee? We don't know. And honestly, that's the most honest thing I can tell you in this entire video. We don't know. The case remains officially closed as an accidental drowning. No charges were ever filed. No inquest was reopened. Josh Whitfield's family continues, to this day, 6 years later, to push the Hartwell County Sheriff's Office to reclassify the case as undetermined pending new evidence, a request that, as of the filming of this video, has been denied twice. Derek Holloway went on to finish college. He's married now, living 2 states away, and declined every single interview request, including mine. Mia Torres has spoken publicly exactly once, in a local news interview in 2019, where she said, through tears, "I loved Josh like a brother. I would never, ever hurt him, and it destroys me that people think that." She has not spoken publicly since. And Josh's mother, In the last interview she gave before asking media to stop contacting her family, said something that I think about constantly. I don't need someone to go to prison. I just need someone to tell me the truth. That's all I've ever asked for. The truth. So here's what we know for certain. A 21-year-old boy who called his mother every single Sunday went into a lake and never came out. There was an unsent text message that said something was wrong. There was a wound that one expert says happened before death. There was a 12-minute gap nobody can explain. And there were witnesses a quarter-mile away who heard an argument that no investigator ever asked them about. Was it a tragic accident, made to look complicated by grief and bad police work? Or was it something else? Something 7 people have carried in silence for 6 years? I'll leave that for you to decide. But I'll tell you this. Cases like this don't stay buried forever. Sometimes it takes one new witness, one old friend who finally can't carry the weight anymore, one piece of digital evidence nobody thought to check. If you have any information related to a case like this, or if this story resonated with you, drop a comment below. You'd be surprised how many of these cases get reopened because someone in the comments knew something nobody else did. If you want to see the full breakdown of the audio analysis I mentioned earlier, I've got that video linked right here. And if you're new to this channel, hit subscribe because next week we're covering a case that's even harder to explain than this one. I'll see you in the next video.